Good morning, beautiful people. I just pray you have a blessed day today. And in my spirit, I've just been trying to rest in the Lord. And one of the things the Lord was really focusing on this whole weekend was how hard life can be and how we need to lean in on Him. We need to trust in Him, and we need to focus on what intentional time we have with the Lord looks like. It's so easy to be distracted, and it's so easy to focus on things that don't really matter. And sometimes it feels like it matters because it's somebody else's emergency. But how is your God time? How is your time reading the Bible? I felt like I failed this weekend. I should have been in the Word more. I should have done certain things, shoulda, woulda, coulda type. So I was like, you know what? Today I'm getting back in it the way I need to. I need to focus on my intentional time with the Lord and not being busy serving the Lord, because serving the Lord is a beautiful thing. But I have to have a relationship with God. And so as I have a relationship with God, serving is the bonus, right? I want to do that. But I have to learn what He wants for me. I have to learn to peel those onion layers. I have so much work to do. And so one of the things that I really thought about was, there's so many options, but I'm just going to give a couple, is that we all go through hard times. And so if you think about Joseph in the Bible, like in the book of Genesis, chapter 39 talks about, Joseph going to prison, but his whole life, right? One thing after another, being sold into slavery by his brothers and things like that. He had a hard life, but he needed those hard things to develop his character, even though that wasn't the Lord's will for him, right? So that when he became the king's right-hand man, right, he knew how to handle certain things. He just had that wisdom about him. And even if he hadn't have gone to prison, maybe the Lord would have found a different way to put him in that position. But being in prison allowed him to have access to the people he needed to have access to. So sometimes in our human mind, we don't want to go about something a certain way. But sometimes we're going about it for the lesson, and sometimes we're going about it to serve someone else or reach somebody that we may not have reached prior to that. And so that's just something that I think is really important, right? Think about Daniel. Daniel 6 talks about Daniel in the lion's den. The miracle happened when Daniel was in the middle of the mess. When he got to the lion's den, that's when God got to really show up and show out. He spent the night there. Nothing happened to him. The angel shut the lion's mouth. That was a moment that you wouldn't have heard about or experienced if you wouldn't have been in the middle of the mess, right? So Daniel had to go through that, but that doesn't mean God wasn't there 100% of the way. And so we are going to have moments where we're going to be in a lion's den. That doesn't mean that God isn't there. And so we have to look for the silver linings. We have to look for the Lord in all the things. And when we see the enemy everywhere, how's our God time? How's our relationship with the Lord, right? Because it wears you down and you get tired. And so if you read Daniel 6, it talks about Daniel in the lion's den, but think about it. If he hadn't have gone there, you wouldn't have seen the miracle. And sometimes we're going to go through hard things. In fact, a lot of times we're going to go through hard things. It's part of it. It's part of being a Christian. Another example is Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, when they went to, as Daniel chapter 3, when they went into the fire. They went into the fire, and who was there? There was a fourth man in the fire, right? That was the Lord, right? They were not alone, but you would have not encountered that if you weren't prepared to be in the fire. What do we have to do in life? Where are we in life where we have to do certain things we don't want to? It's very important that you are doing the things that you need to do to serve the Lord and honor Him, despite what the world thinks of you. couple more examples and then we'll just get into a couple more points. Esther, she presented herself to the king so that she could try to save the Jews, right? When she went to see him without him calling for her, she could have died. If he hadn't have put his scepter out, she would have been annihilated. Like that would have been it. But she had to make a choice. And then when she made that choice, she had to use wisdom and discernment. She had to prepare a banquet. She had to, be cunning. She did certain things. So she felt like she was walking on eggshells, I'm sure, to do this the right way. But even though the Bible, when you read Esther, doesn't talk about God like that, God's hand is in that. Where in your life do you feel like, man, I haven't mentioned God one time, but you don't see God's hand in that? And it's like, man, sometimes the Lord will teach me. He will teach me something, and I feel like he's quiet. And I'm like, man, I want to hear from you. What is going on? Like, why are you so quiet? But I'm trying to lean in my understanding and not in the supernatural ways of the Lord. I'm trying to put God in a box, and you can't do that. And so another example is you think about David and Goliath. David was a shepherd, right? Like he was fighting lions and probably bears and all sorts of stuff. And he prepared without even realizing it to fight Goliath. And then he was anointed king long before he ever got to be king. He always had these hurdles in his life, and he was an imperfect person. How many of us are imperfect, making mistakes all the time? And so sometimes in the middle of that mess is when God really shows up and shows out. One of my favorites is Paul and Silas when they were in prison, because if you think about, I think it's Acts 16, they had a little slave girl, and Paul is being followed by her, and Paul and Silas weren't wrong, right? Like she was saying the right things, but you could tell like it was a distraction. So Paul casts out the spirit of divination. Well, the town didn't like that because they were making money off of her, and so then they were punished for that. Paul did the right thing. He still was punished. We're not going to escape hard times in this world. We're not going to escape a lot of the punishment. I was on social media. I post a lot about biblical truth. And one of the things I posted was, I was going to tell you about it. Should have had it ready. Sorry, I didn't plan on talking about it. One of the things that I posted was somebody else posted it, and I completely agreed with it. So I shared it. And I said, if you do not understand this, this is an open invitation to have a conversation. Let's just talk about it. None of these things are of the Lord. And it says, are you practicing the occult and witchcraft and don't even know it? Horoscopes, mediums, numerology, angel numbers, psychics, palm reading, spirits guides, evil eye, yoga, tarot cards, crystals, enneagram, sage, reincarnation, manifesting, Reiki, chakras, and Freemasonry. So not a lot of people understand the demonic ties to that, right? Like they just don't get it, but that doesn't make it any less real. And so I was one video away from being a yoga instructor, and that was before I was made new in the Lord. And I just felt like I couldn't go through with it for some real weird reason. And I never turned it in. I had all the work done, did all the hours, did all the stuff. I was a Reiki master and all sorts of craziness. I understand New Age. But then I started to learn about the Lord, and I started to read my Bible more and have a relationship with the Lord. And one of the things I noticed is there was a thing called deliverance. And some people on TV and YouTube sensationalize deliverance, and they make it like a thing. It really isn't like that. It's a ministry of love. It's to free you from some of the generational curses and trauma and all sorts of stuff. It is a phenomenal thing done right. And so the Lord was like, hey, I want you to do deliverance. I want you to learn what that is. And I'm like, I don't know about this. This sounds crazy. But then God was like, hey, you're putting me in a box. And I'm like, okay, you're right. And so my husband and I, we learned about it, and then we received deliverance. And it was like, it was done in such a tactful and beautiful way that we no longer had certain oppressions anymore. And so one of the things that we noticed was, wow, I am cheating on the Lord during certain things. Like on your cell phone, like if you're focused more on your cell phone and the stuff on there than you are reading the Bible and praying and talking to the Lord, is your cell phone an idol? So in deliverance, we help people break free on all sorts of stuff. And what we've noticed is everything on that list has held people in such bondage in ways that you don't understand. And so I will be more than happy to talk about it and break it down in different spaces as the Lord allows, but it is very dangerous. And so horoscopes, for example, you're playing God, right? Like you're coming into agreement with something that someone else is saying. And so, why are you coming into agreement with a personality? And of course, they're always like, oh, well, it's dead on. And oh, yeah, I'm totally like that and blah, blah, blah. But you're coming into agreement with something that is not of God. And God says, don't put any idols before him. God says, don't put your trust in anything that's not of God. And so it's just a distraction. We have prophets, right? In the Bible, there's prophets, and then there's people who have prophetic words, which are two totally different things. So not everyone is a prophet, but people could get prophetic words of knowledge, things like that. Well, mediums, they speak to the demons that are assigned to you, and you know, the enemy wants you to be tormented and harassed. And sometimes he'll give you everything you want to distract you from having a relationship with the Lord. Well, mediums can literally look at the spirits that are assigned to you and have a conversation with them or hear from them, and then they can read your mail. My mother-in-law, big psychic fan, spent lots of money on psychics, never once heard that her son was going to end up in jail, right? Like not one time. And then after he goes to jail, of course, what's she hear? Oh yeah, he's going to face incarceration. Come on, man, give me a break. So we don't come into agreement with anything not of God. And so if you're listening to that stuff, numerology, angel numbers, see, those are imitations of the Hebrew gematria, the numbers that the Lord has done. So everything has an imitation. Mediums, psychics, all the same stuff, right? I was describing a psychic earlier, my apologies. Palm reading, tea leaves, spirit guides. Why do you need a spirit guide? Do you not have God? So anything that takes you away from the Lord. And so tarot cards, coming into agreement with something that is not of the Lord, trying to get your future told, things like that, you can actually come into agreement with something and allow the enemy to have it happen for you. That's not good. So I saw a testimony, and she said that she went to a psychic, and the psychic said that her boyfriend was going to be in a car accident, and she was like, oh my God, and she had 7 days or something, and something happened. Well, she came into agreement with that, and he did end up in an accident. But had she had not put herself in that situation, he wouldn't have even been harmed. It was more of a, are you coming into agreement and allowing bad things to happen because you really want to know, and it's not even from the Lord? And we see this stuff all the time. Reincarnation, Hindu belief. Enneagram, same thing as your horoscopes and stuff. What are you coming into agreement with? Reiki, I'm not even going to get into that this time. We'll get into another video. Manifesting. The only thing that manifests are demons. Be very careful on that. But angel numbers are something that people really, really are like, oh, this is my angel number. I'm seeing 1111 all the time and all that stuff. And it's just New Age is trickling in on all the Christian sites, all the Christian churches and stuff. And we got to be very careful on what we're coming into agreement with. So the Lord has given me numbers before, and he's told me to look up scripture and see what it means and see what hits. And so I've done that, and he's talking to me that way, but he's not telling me, oh, look at this number and this angel represents this. Because what do the angels do in the Bible when they see someone bowing down to them? Whoa, whoa, whoa. Don't bow down to me. We only worship the Lord. Do not praise me. What are you doing? So why would we be celebrating angels in such a way where we place them in such a high value? We just wouldn't do that. And so the enemy doesn't care that you do any of these things as long as you're not focused on God. And so he doesn't care if you're Christian by saying you're Christian. He doesn't care about any of that. He doesn't care that you're lukewarm. What he cares about is if you're on fire for Jesus. And so everybody who is on fire for the Lord, everybody who is trying to get close to the Lord, every single one of us will have hard times. And in those hard times, God will show up and show out. We have to keep going and keep focused only on the Lord. And I have been criticized the very most. Like, it's just crazy how much I've been criticized, given my life hard for Jesus. But I was so bold in my sin life, not even realizing that. Why wouldn't I go hard for Jesus? And so if you are going hard for Jesus and you see your friends change, if you see some of the stuff like that change, just know that no matter what, God has you. It is a narrow road for a reason. It's a lonely road sometimes. So I pray that you know that in the fire, the Lord will always be there with you. But sometimes you may not hear him. And so focus on your God time. Focus on being bold for him despite being alone and walking it out. And trust that no matter what, God is still good. I pray you have a blessed day. And I really just hope that you consider that and talk to the Lord about it and see that he peels those layers off for you. Because at the end of the day, God will make sure to be heard. He will not have any idols before him. He is a very jealous God, but he's a very loving God, and he disciplines us so that we may get better, so that we may be closer to him, so that we may do better. And so when you are close to the Lord, it is lonely, it hurts, and it's hard, but you are not alone in that. And you have to show up and show out until God comes and picks us up, or till it's your last moment here on earth. You give it all to the Lord and don't worry about it, because other people are lacking that relationship with God, and they don't want to see your candle be lit because theirs isn't. They don't understand that all we want is their candle to be lit, and it doesn't change the fact that our candles are both lit. We don't need to take one away to have a bright light. The more light we have, the brighter the light becomes. And so I really pray you consider these things and let me know which person in the Bible speaks to you the most, like which hard time that was persevered speaks to you the most, because quite frankly, every person in the Bible had a hard time at some point. It's like crazy how hard it can be, but we're not alone. We're imperfect, but we don't have to be perfect. The blood of Jesus covers all. We have to have a relationship with him. We have to repent, change our ways, and keep getting closer to him. And as we do that, we die to self. And when we die to self, we no longer focus on the worldly things. We focus on the Lord. And that is what's important. I pray you have a blessed day.